Britain and Jamaica have had a strong relationship dating back many, many centuries. The question is, in this 21st century, is Britain and Jamaica still walking hand in hand, lockstep into the future? Those questions and more on the broader issues related will be discussed with the British High Commissioner to Jamaica, Asif Ahmad, and he's a proud Liverpool supporter and a man of sport. Welcome, High Commissioner.
Good to see you, George.
I guess the place to start is for you to make a declaratory statement on the state of play between Britain, Jamaica's former colonial master, Jamaica, the former colony of Britain, I'm putting it that way. What is the state of that direct relationship on this day in sports in 2019?
Well, you know, in some ways I need to go back to when I actually bid for the job, because in our system you just don't get it by being in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
You've got to be able to make a pitch. And it's like an X Factor pitch. There's a panel of 3 people, and in front of them is a piece of paper that I had to produce on one A4 sheet that says, this is my mandate, this is my manifesto, and this is what I think are the issues that I want to focus on if you appoint me.
Yes.
And the opening sentence of that was that this assignment to Kingston is as much a domestic posting in the UK as it is a posting abroad. And that goes back to this link. It's history, it's current, it's the future. And the links of people, you know, we have 800,000 people of Jamaican heritage in the UK, and the wider Caribbean takes it to probably a million.
Yes.
And then when I arrived here, you know, you just scratch the surface, and there are all sorts of gems, not just about legacy of colonialism and everything that followed, but the actual struggle for independence and what has happened since. And then you go to the schools and how they evolved from the British system to where they are. You go to watch sports and the connections that are now modern. And you come right back to now.
Yes.
And when the World Cup was on, I put out a tweet on my social media that said that 8 of the England team have Caribbean heritage. Now, so that should be the natural team for Jamaica to,
I remember that tweet.
to follow.
Yes.
And that, in a way, that sort of sums up that whole thing. It touches our lives from big, serious things to fun things, and it's evolving. I don't think it's stuck in a particular perspective or whatever. But underneath all of that, in a government-to-government thing, which is my day job, it's one of respect. You know, you don't take Jamaica for granted. Oh, a Commonwealth country, they see the world the same way. No, Jamaica has its own interests.
Yes.
It's when ours are aligned, we do well. But they're open to persuasion and discussion. So are we. And sometimes, and when we talk about it later on, when it comes to the other way around, with the Windrush issues and challenges we had to come to Jamaica for help. And in terms of finding the people and explaining what it is we're trying to do and help us work through. So it's not a one-way relationship. And I think that is how it should be between 2 countries that have had a shared history, but we don't take it for granted in terms of where we're going.
Let's go right to Windrush, because that High Commissioner is, for many Jamaicans, the whole scandal, a slap in the face of Jamaicans from 1655 till now who worked to build Britain, who worked here to build Britain, who worked in Britain to build Britain. That Windrush generation, what they gave to create what Britain is now, and perhaps what Britain will always be, because you can't take the Jamaicanness out of Britain. You can't take the Caribbean influence broadly from Trinidad, from Haiti, wherever. You'll never be able to take that out of British society, I don't think. And when they see that people are, well, rounded up, sent back home, you've been there 40 years, you can't prove that you belong, and you suddenly become a criminal. You're criminalized by the whole process. It doesn't sit well with many.
Nor should it. This is a passage of our implementation of a policy that was misdirected, badly designed, badly implemented, for which the Home Secretary gave up her then ministry. She resigned.
Yes.
We had a formal apology from the Prime Minister, and we now have the compensation scheme going through. And I asked myself, you know, how did it happen? You know, what were the signs that we should have spotted? And what's different between this part of the Commonwealth heritage and the South Asian heritage that I'm from? Because on national television here in Jamaica, soon after the issue became a scandal, which was about April of, not this year, last year before, I said on national television that this could be the story of my mother. She came on a ship from India
Yes.
to the UK in the 1950s, and then met my father, and I came along. And then we left the UK at the age of 4, in my case, and then the Bangladesh Revolution happened, and we turned up back in the UK, the land of my birth, but as refugees, and my mother was not a British citizen. What happened with her is that she basically said, here I am looking after 3 children, I need shelter. And she thought maybe that she was coming in as a refugee, until somebody actually checked the records and said, no, you are actually entitled to a right of abode because your credentials were established before, and we have found the documents. And then 5 years after that, she got a British passport and everything was regularized.
Yes.
The difference, I think, is that people from Jamaica and the Commonwealth Caribbean actually never felt that they were anything other than British.
Absolutely.
From its inception.
Yes.
So therefore, for somebody to say, I need a piece of paper to prove what I have always known I am, is something that wasn't urgent.
Yes.
There was no reason to go and... So if a person from Jamaica or Jamaican descent had no real intention to go anywhere, they were minding their own business in Brixton or Birmingham or doing what they wanted to do, then suddenly there was news of some distant aunt or grandparent who'd passed away. They sort of came to pay their respects, but then they couldn't board the plane. And this is the signal that we missed, and my predecessors missed. And I have to say, and I'm not blaming somebody, I would, they were in my shoes, and I might have made the same mistake.
Yes.
Which was, individual cases were coming up, not a whole flood of them. So somebody was denied boarding, and then they went quiet. Or through some other means, they found the documentation, got their visa sorted out, and then they left. So it was not really in our radar. But when the issue broke, that was the realization that we were talking about thousands of people.
Yes.
And in the end, 14,000 people registered themselves as part of the exercise,
You
beyond the Commonwealth even.
You made a good point just now about people from the Caribbean, Windrush and after, going over to England, to the UK, and not believing that they were anything other than British. And that, I think, is exemplified best by, well, I'm a man of literature. I love English literature. And there's a book by the brilliant Trinidad and Tobago native Samuel Selvon called The Lonely Londoners. It's a fantastic book. I may gift you a copy. You're a nice man. I'll send one for you. That book captures precisely what you say, because those guys who came over from Barbados, sending for an aunt in Antigua, for a cousin in Jamaica and so forth, they never saw themselves as Jamaicans in Britain, or an Antiguan in Britain, or a Guyanese in Britain. They saw themselves as British.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, their children, who, a 45-year-old man now, who came over at 4 years old, a grandmother who's now blind, who came over at 6 months old, and she's now 60 years old, being told that you don't have the right to remain. And if you draw a parallel between the last time a shipment, well, I say a shipment as if we're talking about commodities, the last time an aircraft with Jamaicans came back was 2016, I believe. And even as a compensation scheme is being worked out, you still have people being rounded up and with a view to putting them on a plane to send them back. Has Britain gone mad?
Yeah.
Is the
No,
question
those
legal?
two issues are slightly different, and
Yes.
more so now.
Yes.
Because, yes, I accept that in the past, before Windrush became an issue, part of the deportations were immigration cases as well as criminal cases. That has changed, and we will not go back to that again. The ministers individually check the people who basically do what every other country does, including Jamaica.
Yes.
If you have people who have no right to stay in your country, who on top of that have committed crimes,
criminals,
then
undesirables.
Then you go back and that's the end of it. Where I think the issues got conflated were people of elderly age, grandmothers and others, some of them who'd worked in the National Health Service were denied care in the National Health Service, and because they could not prove with 4 documents for every year of their life, which I would fail to produce. So we are where we are, and then the compensation scheme has now been announced, and there's a 2-year window for this to be fulfilled, and it will never pay for the real losses that people have incurred, but it's a long way towards some form of recognition with an apology that will come to every individual that this was something that went terribly wrong. if there's a rationale for all of this to understand, and this is something that every country needs to absorb the lessons of, which is that particularly in countries like Jamaica and in the UK where healthcare at the point of delivery is free.
Yes.
Well, then you expect people who are entitled to it to make use of it, not people just flying in and saying, well, this is a great place to
have a baby.
Have your treatment. Now, proof of eligibility to be able to work, to access government services, and then to make it a criminal offense for a landlord to have an illegal migrant, etc.
Yes.
I think it turned people who were visibly foreign into targets.
Yes, it did.
And this is where the complication arose. And then rather quietly, the safeguard for Commonwealth citizens disappeared in the regulations in 2014. So the teams who were going out there, they didn't invent the criteria.
No. They were given them.
They were given a checklist. And if you can't tick those, then all of this happened. I hope that the deep lessons from this and the studies are still going on within government are never repeated again. And there are people who are saying, well, if we get to a situation where people who are in the EU now, and if the UK ends up leaving, if they have to then go through this whole process of proving eligibility and right to move and have the right to family life, etc., we should never go back to this whole Windrush thing. So I think Windrush will live on as a lesson. But Windrush also has a very positive thing, which I recognize in our High Commission. Well before the Windrush became associated with scandal, in February I got approval from London to rename the gardens in the High Commission as Windrush Gardens.
Yes.
And every 22nd of June we will hold an event that celebrates the contribution that people from Jamaica and the wider Caribbean actually made, because they helped build the UK that it is today.
Absolutely so. First segment is done. I'm talking with the British High Commissioner to Jamaica, Asif Ahmad. We just spoke about the Windrush issues. Much more to discuss as it relates to British and Jamaican business in the rest of the program. Don't go anywhere.